Thank you for joining me today. Make sure you have your resolution on your viewing device turned up as high as you possibly can. This video is a multifaceted idea for just having some fun today, number one. And number two, I'm testing this new 4080 overclocked video card that I just purchased. So I have my settings about as high as they can possibly go, just to experience this as best as possible for fun. Today we are at, well, let me show you. Quite an amazing place. We are in the West Indies, also known as the Caribbean, and we're at St. Bart's. You may have even seen videos on this airport. Tango Foxtrot, Foxtrot, Juliet. It's very, very well known for its awesome approach. Right there, if you can see. You gotta kind of just swoop in over that hill and then hit runway 10 without actually hitting it, and then stopping before the drink at the end of the runway. So we're also going to make this flight today in an equally strange aircraft, the Cessna 337. This was Cessna's attempt to create an inline dual-engine, dual-pusher, and puller prop plane with two engines. As opposed to having them mounted on the wings, this aircraft was theoretically supposed to be able to, in theory, negate the need for a twin-engine license, because in a generic twin engine, right, you have an engine on the left wing and the right wing. Well, when one of the engines fails, you have asymmetric thrust, thus requiring more skills and training to fly it properly in the event of an emergency. This was not successful, and to my knowledge, the feds actually said, no, you still do need a twin engine license to operate a twin engine airplane. Don't quote me on that. This is just, hearsay. I learn all my stuff from Wikipedia. I'm sure all that's accurate to the T. Anyways, that being said, I'll go ahead and I'll pull up this map again, and I'll show you where we're headed. If you thought that St. Bart's was an interesting airport, we are going to be heading about 26.5 nautical miles to Tango November Charlie Sierra. That's Saba Island, and it is literally known for having one of the shortest runways on the planet. So, we'll try that on this evening flight here from St. Bart's to there. And without further ado, let's go ahead and test this video card out and hopefully have some fun in the process flying over to Saba. I'll remove these yokes here for the time being. And as you can see, it looks complicated, but it's not really bad. So we've got our propeller pitch forward for, full air conditioning into the engines so they don't overheat on the ground. And we'll also have our mixtures for the front and rear engines to full rich. That way we get maximum fuel cooling inside of the cylinders. Anyhow, we'll turn on the battery. I'm yapping too much. We'll also go ahead and turn on the avionics. So I'm going to have a little bit of prime on the rear and the front engines by turning on the fuel pumps and also moving the throttles forward a little bit. So, that being said, we'll turn those off for the time being, and what I would like to do is throw on the beacons and the nav lights. That way, if anybody were around us, they would know engine start imminent. Clear the prop out the window is what the words would be, but I'm not screaming that out loud on my computer sitting in my room. So, yeah, we'll skip that and just say we did it. Either way, let's go ahead and get this engine fired up. So I'm going to bring the rear engine alive first. Of course, our parking brakes are already set. Let's go ahead. Alright, just like that, we're running. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make sure our cow flaps are open, and they are. But with that being said, let's go ahead and turn on the alternator for the rear engine. So we're generating electricity. That would always be nice, right? And then let's go ahead, we'll close this window as it's in our way. And then let's go ahead and repeat the process for the front engine there. But before we do that, let's make sure we check our oil pressures for the rear. Yep, we are coming into the green. That's good. Oil temperatures, they'll rise. Cylinder head temperatures, they'll rise. So you've got a rear and a front, of course, as well as the fuel tanks, so on and so forth. Anyhow, start her up as you were. And there we go. So again, front engine. We'll make sure that our oil pressure is coming up into the green, which it is. We have about half load of fuel today, 50%, but it's only us, so we're good. will not take a lot of fuel to go 26.5 nautical miles. Anywho, turn on the alternator. We're going to leave our pitot heat off now. Of course, we turn that on so that we get accurate airspeed and knots indicated. We'll leave that the way it is, and we'll let our engines come up to temperature. But before we move, of course, let's go ahead and swap over from the GNS 530 avionics package to the GTN 750. This is the premium. It also has the METAR, meteorological reporting, so that you can check when you're in the air what the weather-like conditions are, what they're like at the destination airport, as well as the charts. But the thing is, St. Bart's and Saba do not have any charts as far as I'm aware of. There are no ILS approaches here. This is just a commuter airport. So, next thing I want to do, transponder Unicom 7000 in the Caribbean, altitude reporting, because we need to let air traffic know where we are and how fast we're going at what height. Anyhow, let's check out that flight plan. So as I said, we'll bring up the VFR map, and then we will tell the GTN where we are by setting our origin. Of course, this unit is nice because it's pretty much touchscreen. So Tango, Foxtrot, Foxtrot, Juliet. Press the Enter key. And then let's scroll down to Saba. And we'll say we're headed to Tango November, Charlie Sierra. Tango November, Charlie Sierra, enter. Close that out, gives us the magenta line, all while monitoring our oil temperatures and pressures. We are coming into the green for the oil temperature, as well as I do believe the cylinder head temperatures will start rising soon. So let's go back. We have no messages or warning indicators. We'll go to the map, and it's telling us that we are going to, as intended, 26.5 nautical miles. So to get there, I'm going to be flying this manually, so we're not going to really be using autopilot. Of course, if you're wondering what this is like a prehistoric Bendix weather radar. So, we're not going to use that. Visual flight rules, aka VFR today. Let's get some air flowing into the cabin. Do not need any heaters for now. This is the Caribbean. Alright, so before I do anything else, let's go ahead and throw the yoke back on, and we'll check to see our flight control surfaces. So we'll deflect full left, full right, nose down, nose up, and we'll remove the parking brakes. Let's go ahead and check our brakes. Yep, they actually deflect. Rudder left, rudder right. But then before we actually taxi, we'll announce that we're taxiing. So however, let's put in a notch of flaps. Okay, because we're going to be taking off, right? So we need some flaps. Now, we'll call ATC. Tune to 118.45. Announce our taxi.
Tango Foxtrot, Foxtrot, Juliet, traffic November, 79er, 252.
Okay, runway 10. So I'm going to go ahead and swap us up to our runway heading as soon as we get out there. That way, if I need to throw on autopilot in an emergency, we'll just fly runway heading at 10. That being said, we announced our taxi, so let's go ahead and make sure we have a brake check here. Throw on some throttle. And I'll check the left brake, and I'll check the right brake. Okay, so we actually do have functional brakes. That always helps. I'm going to pull off right here before we line up on the active, and I'm going to test our ignition system for our front and rear engines. Should not take but a jiff. Readjust my view height here. I always like to see the front cowl for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, let's run this engine up to about, I don't know, 1800, 1750. The RPM gauge here. This is the naturally aspirated engine. There's no turbochargers on this model, so we do not have to worry about overboosting the engine. And that's normalized, so let's go ahead and check our magnetos here. So I'm going to drop off the rear engine. We're looking for a drop, which we have, to both. And then I'll go over to the right, and a drop, back to both. Let's go ahead and check our front engine. And a drop, back to both. And let's check the right. a drop back to both. Okay, we'll bring this back to idle. I'll go ahead and throw my landing lights on, and I'm going to leave the strobes off, but we will throw on our auxiliary fuel boost pumps to high because we do not want any problems. If we have a problem, we'll have those backups so our engines don't quit on the rollout. And we'll bring up the ATC window, of course, checking out over our right rear to make sure that there are no aircraft we're cutting off. And we're going to basically head almost due west, so we'll say departing west.
Tango Foxtrot Juliet traffic November 79er.
And we'll rotate our HSI to 110 degrees here, runway heading. And let's check out the front, nothing there, and we already know there's nothing from the right. So let's go ahead, line up here with center line and get out of town. So hopefully you're enjoying this little infomercial of a Microsoft Flight Simulator video, or whatever this is. Hopefully entertainment, at the least. Alright. Now, like I said, this is a non-turbocharged set of engines, so we don't have to worry about overspeeding the engine or overboosting the cylinders or anything. So let's just go ahead and slam the throttle to the firewall. And let's go. Airspeed indicator on the 6-pack. Center left, top, alive at 40, 50 knots, 60, 65, 70, and rotating. Positive rate of climb. Throw the landing gear up. And we'll steer left to avoid people's homes. And I'm currently trimming out the trim wheel so that I have neutral pressure and I do not have to have any back pressure on the yoke, also known as the flight stick. Yeah, that thing. Nice little cruise ship down there. Okay, so I'm fairly confident we have two good engines. I'm gaining a little bit of altitude here. I'm going to bring our manifold pressure back down into the green. 25 inches of manifold pressure. With that, let's go ahead and bring the front and rear propellers down to about 2,400 RPM for now. Start heading towards Saba, shall we? Now that we're not needing the lights for the runway in recognition, let's go ahead and turn off the landing lights. We'll also turn off the high boost fuel pumps. And now we're just flying. Everything's good. Bring our notch of flaps up. We're going to lose a little bit of lift, but I'll compensate with trim. And we are now flying clean. So we're climbing at 1,000 feet plus a minute. We'll leave it right about there. Gain some altitude just in case of an engine out. And that's where we were, right down there in the center of the screen. Saba is out this way to our left. What I'm going to do to get there is let's go ahead and make a left-hand turn while still maintaining a climb. 26 miles, we don't want to get super high today, although with the non-turbocharged engine, that essentially means the higher we go in altitude, the less dense the air, of course, right? So we lose horsepower. Naturally aspirated, non-turbo normalized means altitude is our enemy in terms of performance. So I'm making that left-hand turn. As you can see, the sun will be going down soon. But I'm making a left-hand turn. Let me zoom out of our GTN here. Just bringing the magenta line there a little bit. And we're not going to be using autopilot today, if I did not mention that. Mentioning it now. So I'd like to bring this climb to a halt here. We're at about 3,200 feet indicated. And let's bring the manifold pressure back a little further to about 22, and we'll drop the propeller RPMs down to about 2250. Okay, all trimmed out, hands off the yoke. So that being said, let's go ahead and reach up here. Make sure we are still in takeoff, which we are. That would not have changed anyway, but that's okay. And you can see in our 750 GTN, we're actually getting closer to that magenta, so when we get there, I'll pull a slight right-hand turn. We'll intercept that manually as if we were the autopilot. And curiosity's sake, if you're looking for how far we have to go, 22 nautical miles. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of the GTN there, but not focusing on that, just looking outside and viewing the scenery with the clouds, the sun over the water. Of course, this 337 is quite an interesting aircraft with the twin boom design. I find it fascinating. I've always liked it. Of course, we've got sun visors up here, so let me know if the sun gets in your eyes. And this video is obviously going to be a one take, so there will be no super editing here. Again, if I didn't mention that before, I'm mentioning it now. We'll just do the whole 26 plus nautical mile flight in real time, because I want you to experience the full ride from St. Bart's to Saba on a 1-to-1 scale. Of course, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Bing Maps provided of the entire planet. I truly find this game fascinating, and I'm always looking for excuses to do interesting flights. And this is just one of those ones that for some reason is short. You can get up, you can get down, you can have a little bit of a challenging approach, in my opinion, and hop on with your day. Cut the lawn, whatever it is you do. So let me put this visor down. You may actually be able to see Saba Island there, right off of our nose. Of course, traveling directly into the sun doesn't help. Let's go down a little bit and look out the window while we're flying. I must say though, if you're considering a new video card, like I was, I upgraded from a MSI 6800 XT Gaming X Trio 16G. Fantastic card, still have it, put it in another computer, and I'm using it for other games. But going from that to this MSI Gaming Edition with the factory overclock 4080, it is night and day. I can tell the FPS here is an extraordinary boost compared to the 6800 XT, which I would consider still very healthy card for performance. Especially now, so with, you know, the price drops and everything on the GPU market. But if you're considering a new video card, I would definitely give the 4080 a try. Like I said, this is settings pretty much almost as high as they can go. The only things I have turned down are kind of just personal preference. I don't have depth of field, I don't have any of that. I basically just have it that way out of preference. I mean, any graphical change you put on this seems to make zero impact on overall performance. It's fast no matter what. It doesn't matter where you set the settings. Anyhow, back to the matter at hand. You can see we're traveling at about, what, 135 knots indicated. All of our temperatures and pressures are good for both the front and rear engine. Did not mess too much with the barometric pressure on the altimeter today. That's okay, we're sitting at a standard 29.92. So, that's quite alright. Let's go ahead and bring up air traffic control, and we'll talk to this place, also known as Saba 118.25. Tune into, select runway for landing, and we are going to come in essentially on runway 12. We're going to announce a full stop, and we'll announce our position. Pretty much, the runway is at about our 11:30 when it comes to location on the island. So we're going to fly basically a left base to a straight-in final. You'll see when we get there, not much longer. Trying to keep the speed up till the very last moment. That way we don't lose too much sunlight because, yes, indeed, it is, as I said, the evening. And we're probably going to get a little bit of shade as the sun is behind the mountaintop there as we travel into the airport. You'll see. It's quite fun. I try to keep reminding myself to look around outside the windows because there's plenty to see. Lots of water, but it is picturesque. And I try to do an evening flight to bring on a little bit more shadows. Of course, the cabin is fairly dark, but that's okay. So, turn on a little bit of lights there. Maybe that'll help a little bit for the eyes. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and stay above or in front of the aircraft. So let's go ahead and turn on our landing lights now. We'll start bringing power back very soon. I'm drifting towards the magenta line intentionally because this is going to be a left-hand turn base. Well, actually, we're kind of on base now, but we'll be turning a left-hand onto final. So, to do that, I'm going to go ahead and throw on our rear and forward auxiliary fuel boost pumps. Just in case we have any issues, I'll bring my manifold pressure back a bit, drop the throttle, and that warning is the sound for those of us who may or may not forget our landing gear on approach. But I'm going to go ahead and swing out to the right here. Give ourselves just a little bit of room. And what I'm doing is pulling back the throttle and holding the nose up so that we don't dive too much to bleed off this airspeed. Once I get within the white arc, which if you see in the 6-pack steam gauges on the top left there, we're at 120. And I like to get to about 110 before I start thinking about throwing in a notch of flaps, because do not want to overspeed the flaps and rip those off. Alright, so we're within our first stage of flaps there. Gonna throw those on, add a little bit of power, and get rid of that noise by extending the landing gear. So we'll get through these clouds. I'll make another call to air traffic control. All the meanwhile, I'm trimming out to have hands-free flight without having to keep constant pressure on the yoke. That's one thing that gets lost in translation between this flight and the simulator in real life. The trim is super important because that way, if you're on landing approach, you do not want to be fighting the yoke when you're trying to concentrate on more important things like landing the plane successfully. So I'm going to bring our propeller knobs full forward. That way we have maximum power available to us when we need it. I'll announce my position one more time. We've slowed way down to 80 knots. And you can tell I've come way back on the power because we're dropping some altitude here. And I'll just leave my ATC window up. Like I said, we've got taxi lights off and landing lights on, but I'm going to go ahead and throw the taxis on as well. Max maximum visibility, right? We want to be seen. That blinding sun, perhaps somebody doesn't see us in a blind spot. So we'll go ahead and help try to alleviate that. We'll get a little closer and I will go ahead and call out the base position in the pattern here. And we'll keep swinging to the right to steer wide. Of course, mixture full forward. As I said already, propellers full forward. Need maximum performance in the event of a go-around missed approach. And I'm going to start throwing in that power, because do not want to lose too much airspeed as we are starting to arrest our descent. And hopefully the view isn't too awkward out the side window for you there. I'm just using that angle to keep track of Saba on approach. While we're here, I'm going to go ahead and let the locals know that we're on base.
Traffic November 79252 is on base runway.
Even though we're kind of half base, half downwind leg. That's okay. I trust that you see the airport now, off to our left out of the left window. And then in a few moments, we're going to swing a very wide left-hand curve here. And it's just, well, we're not landing into the sun anyway, right? You can see how when we get around this left turn here where the sun's going to pretty much vanish behind us and to our right. Let's go ahead and announce a final here. That's just so that I can stay ahead of it in the simulator. I'll cut power and I will start our left turn towards final. Of course, all while trimming out. And we'll come in on a 45 to final. Approximately, of course. And you can see just how short that runway is. Trying to jockey here for my perfect eye height. And that's final. Straight down the center line. Let's go ahead and get this on the ground and then slam on the brakes. Okay, we're down. Brakes applied. And then here we are at Saba. Let's go ahead and remove the yoke. I'll turn the taxi lights off. We'll go ahead and we'll move the rear and the forward boost pumps for fuel, and we'll go ahead and turn around. There's not even a lot of room to turn around here, is there? That's literally the end of the runway. And then we'll taxi up the hill. So I don't know if you've seen any videos on this place in real life, but they are quite awesome YouTube videos to watch. You can see it's getting kind of dark with the sun behind the island there. Hence turning on the instrument panel lights before we came in to stay out of the aircraft, so we weren't confused right at the end. Just like that, we're going to make a right-hand turn here, making sure not to rip our wing off on those ladders. And I'll go ahead and stop right out here and commence with a shutdown. So now that we stopped and we don't have any more airfill, let's go ahead and get some air conditioning in here, compliments of the propeller. So I'm going to turn off the taxi lights, turn off the beacons, turn off the navs. Let's go ahead and remove our pitot heat. We'll go ahead and close up our air source here. I'll bring my propeller pitch back and my mixture back. Alright, let's remove the panel lights. We'll close our cows so that no birds or insects fly in there and get burned alive. We'll turn our things off here, back to standby, and then hit the off button. And then once we go back to that, let's hit back to the main. We'll make sure we reach up and cut the fuel off from the firewall forwards to the engines. And then let's go ahead, we'll remove our alternators. Close the window, both magnetos to off, rear and forward. Remove the avionics master, and then let's turn off the batteries. Okay, fully shut down aircraft. So I hope you liked this video. Entertainment and a test of the new video card. So, that being said, thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, till the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.